Welcome to Ampedcast, where we bring together the worlds of electronic dance music and storytelling. Get to know industry leaders and talent on the rise as we sit down with them to share their artist journey from behind the decks. Our community is one for artists and music lovers alike, so settle in and enjoy the experience. Welcome to Sessions powered by Ampedcast, where we get to know artists from behind the decks to learn about them, learn about their music, and what it's really like to be a producer in the electronic music space. And today we have Haute Take and Ganimal with us. Hey guys. And we're going to be learning all about their journey in music, as well as a recent collaboration that they have had. Why don't y'all introduce yourselves?
I'm Lester, one half of Haute Take.
I'm Gerald, Ganimal.
Hey guys, I'm Jorge, aka Pablo Rosa. I'm the other half of Haute Take.
So great to see you guys. And this actually comes so full circle because I remember when I interviewed Haute Take, was it when we started our very first podcast? It wasn't even a podcast yet. We just were recording and we talked about your experience in music as a duo. And so now it's really great to be here again with y'all to kind of talk about your journey. So tell me a little bit about your journey as artists in electronic music here in Austin. Just like a little brief.
It's actually funny that you brought up Higher Ground right now, because even I was thinking about it, and that's actually the main way that we started working with Gerald, and he had a little bit more of a presence, I would say, in Austin than Jorge and I when we first started. And then after having met him through the open deck events and stuff like that, and a lot of other DJs in town, and even yourself actually, it just kind of led to getting more gigs and getting more networking out, because it really is all about networking. And so I think these kinds of events, those open deck kind of events, they're all in retrospect, it's kind of it definitely paid off, I think.
Yeah, so I moved here from Chicago. I'm originally from New Jersey to start a career in music. I still have a day job. Started DJing, and I had a zero network here, and I kind of did everything on my own. Started an event planning company on my own, through my own parties, so I could DJ them. And I didn't have that crew or that DJ clique to kind of lean on. And then when I met the boys, they kind of opened me up to a lot of new music, which is why I appreciate them so much. And the EP that we released, Liquid Architecture, is just symbolic of that. It's kind of the sounds and the rhythm that they opened me up to and things that I fell in love with. So I think it was a really nice, mutually symbiotic relationship where I was putting them on to bigger stages and they were opening me up to different sounds and stuff. And ultimately, we were able to put this EP together.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of that, Gerald was instrumental in just our growth as artists within the Austin community. We're doing the typical things, going to open decks, reaching out to a bunch of venues, and the cold outreach kind of thing. And that obviously doesn't work all the time. But with his platform, the parties used to throw through his event planning company, he gave us a lot of opportunities, and eventually that led to more people reaching out to us. But before that, I moved to Austin back in 2021. I originally lived in Boston, moved down here. I'm from El Paso, same city as Lester. I wasn't a DJ when I first moved here. I just loved electronic music, going to shows, and started developing more of a taste and more of a passion for it as I moved to Austin, because there's a lot of house music events here. And he had a residency at Codependent. I asked him one day, finally, when I felt like I knew how to at least touch a couple buttons. So I was like, hey, do you mind if I play with you one day? And we had a blast, and from then we just continued to play together. Eventually we became the duo. And yeah, that's when we met Gerald, and like I said, just kind of blew up from there. But the producer era started about a year and a half ago, so we're still relatively new. But like I said, coupled with extreme passion for music and just what I consider to be relatively good taste, and also just staying on top of the type of music that's played in the biggest clubs in the world and everything, we were able to create something that, I don't think someone that's only been doing it for a year and a half would have been able to create without the help of these other two. Yeah.
What I really love about what you guys said is like that collaboration part of it. You know, sometimes it takes that person next to you to do it. And I remember when y'all were starting, like when you two met and we had talked, and then I remember like just the experience of like you kind of took him under your wing, taught him music, and then you like took off and you both were like playing everywhere. And then Gerald, I met you like everywhere too. And it's just been so fun to see you grow in the scene and be a part of that and like come back. Like we actually when we podcast over a year ago, we were all kind of new at what we were doing in our craft. And so it was really fun to like see it come full circle. So I'd like to dive into, let's take it back. What inspired you to get into music to begin with? Like, was there, like, what inspires your sound? And, I know we talked about before in the past, like black coffee was a huge inspiration and elevator music. Yeah. We did talk about elevator EDM. But yeah, can you dive into what like inspires you as an artist?
Sure, I guess I'll go first since I have the mic already. I don't have a music theory background. I never played instruments growing up. But music was present in my family through when I would visit my cousins that were living in Denver. They all sang in the choir. So they all learned how to play instruments. And I guess I grew up with like going to church and hearing them sing and stuff like that. But that was like the only exposure that I had. Eventually in college, I think is when I started to just explore different kinds of music, kind of start realizing the type of music that I like. And then I became the guy that like, get on the aux kind of thing. Just cringy to think about now. But yeah, so eventually, like I said, I started realizing that it's more than just I like to listen to music, it's more of a passion. And then, like I said, I went to house music shows, leveraged Lester, and then continued to just develop that way. But yeah, I mean, like I said, no extensive music theory background, just a passion for it. It's something that I think about every single day, and something that I'd like to feel like there's something inside of me that there's a certain sound that I've heard before that I want to be able to create and share with people as well.
Love that.
Yeah, similar to Jorge, do not have a musical background. Studied engineering in college, which honestly I find more parallels with that, with DJing and production, especially house music. It's like super mathematical, a lot of 4s and 8s. And the way I'm processing those patterns, I think, is the same way I was processing numbers in college. But where I really fell in love with it, I think, grew up right outside New York City, went to school in the city, and once I hit 21, I started going to New York clubs, and the music was just like so new. If any of you guys had been to Output, it's closed now. It was like Facebook page only. No, you couldn't find it on Google nowhere. It was like an invite only thing. It's closed now. But they used to have really intimate shows with like top DJs in the world, and the tickets used to be dirt cheap. And I remember going for my first time in like 2015, and I was like, what is this? Where am I? Who are these people? What do you do during the day, kind of thing. And I fell in love with it. From there, I moved to Spain for a bit, and the techno scene out there was like just bar none, just unreal. And it wasn't even that music that I fell in love with, but it was the energy, it was the people, it was the ambiance, it was the people I was meeting, and I was like, okay, now that I know that I love this, I want to do more than what I'm doing. I want to create. I don't want to be just a consumer. I want to produce. I want to add to this. So yeah, it's kind of like what inspired me the most.
I have been DJing for like 16 years now, I think, or maybe even more than that. I was fortunate enough to have a couple uncles who were like really into the music scene in Mexico City when they were younger, and they were like distribute music to bars and clubs and stuff like that. And so they gave me like a hard drive with 40,000 songs of like every genre imaginable. And so I was like the make sure you bring your iPod to the party kind of guy. And so I was just like, well, maybe I could like potentially learn how to DJ. I bought like a little cheap controller that actually had an iPod plug into it, so like you could just like DJ straight up from your iPod. It was revolutionary. And I would just like DJ at like middle school parties and stuff like that. And then eventually like in high school I started like doing like restaurants and stuff like that. And so it's definitely evolved a lot. I recently just bought like my 5th set of equipment, and just like the passion that I still have for it is the same as when I was like in middle school, when I was like a little 13, 12-year-old, how old are you in middle school? Like, I was just like, that's the one thing that hasn't changed. Like, I feel like a lot of my professional goals, career goals, because this is just, I think for all three of us, it's not our full-time job quite yet, or I don't know if it's even in the plans necessarily, but it's just something that we're really passionate about. And so that's just kind of been the thing. Like, regardless, similar, no necessarily like deep, like theory, knowledge, or anything like that, but just like a lot of like want to learn and like just make cool music.
That's really inspiring too, because it just shows that you can create music, and you don't necessarily have to fit a mold. You all have taken who you are and brought that to the forefront and built it, and now you've built a collaboration, which is why I really am excited to chat with you tonight too, because as it sounds like when you two met and formed Haute Take, and then y'all met and formed something that you're creating together. How was that experience? Like, I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly of working together to create music. So let's start out with, what was the inspiration behind the collaboration? Or like, let's give a little brief to what was the collaboration? How many songs was it? And like, kind of what was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so we were able to release a 3-song EP, and the whole concept around it was that we would each start with an idea of a song, and then the other two would step in and kind of like add their own taste and stuff like that to it. And yeah, we were able to do that last year and released it early December. Yeah, just about. And in retrospect, honestly, it was just a very learning experience. Like, it was really different because Jorge and I started with releasing a couple songs just as Haute Take earlier last year, and that was a little bit more, maybe the word's relaxed. Like, we were able to like just kind of take our time and like work out like what exactly we wanted to do, and like really learn a lot of things at the same time that we were doing it. Whereas with Gerald, and really, I guess to answer your question, Kay, like the inspiration came from just the fact that we had been playing so many events together, like either opening up for him or playing with in events for like his company, or like just randomly playing at different bars and stuff like that. And so we obviously had that rapport, and like we just thought, hey, we also have like a lot of shared like music taste, so maybe we could give it a crack and like see if we can come up with something cool. And at least I think like separate from working just Haute Take, the addition of having Gerald was just like we had a lot more of a time schedule that we're trying to follow. So it was a little kind of like under pressure sometimes, and but I think at the end of the day that kind of like forced us to be a little bit more on top of it, and kind of like we were meeting like 3-4 times a week, like either at my house or his house or anywhere, and just kind of like popping ideas of each other. And so it was like a lot of new knowledge in a very short time frame, which was great.
Yeah, I call that friendly pressure. I think there's this EDM song that's called Friendly Pressure that I heard today that reminds me of, you're like, yeah, you've got a deadline, so you made it happen. Okay. So what is a challenge that y'all face? I know the pressure of like timelines and things like that. So what's something that was like really difficult as producers working together?
I mean, the timeline, obviously, we decided like in September that we wanted to get it done by the end of the year. So we were dropping a song a month. So and like to get the marketing ready and get it on DistroKid before all that stuff, like we had a whole, very regimented thing of when we needed to do this. And then we needed to have the EP release party before the year ended because I wasn't coming back till now. So that was the big one. And two, I mean, and I'm sure like there's other creatives in the room as well and can attest that just creatively collaborating with people is challenging because there is no right answer. It's subjective. You could say, well, I want this djembe here. No, I want the bongo there. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's just your taste. You cannot objectively convince someone that this sound should be that. When mixing and mastering, sure, like by the time we were at that point, that stuff, when we collabed with a sound engineer, that was a little more objective. But when you're picking the energy, tempo, vibe of your track, that's subjective. It's what you want it to be. And I think that's what, to kind of piggybacking off what Lester said with how we, I guess, conducted the order of operations, we all started the song on our own and then brought it together to finish. So with like Jorge's, for example, he's like, I want it to be this melodic, like sunrise set vibe. Cool, we're gonna run with that. Mine, I wanted to have a little more rhythm, a little more like up tempo. Okay, cool, and so on and so forth. So like learning to compromise and being patient with each other too, because 3 people. I mean, 2 is a lot. Think about being in a relationship.
Yeah.
Get on the same page with one person. Now you got 3 people. A throuple.
A throuple.
No, I mean, it's challenging, but I'm so happy that we did it because obviously, like, there was friction, you know, everyone's got an ego, but it was good to work through that, to, like, practice communication, patience, compromise. So I'm super happy. I'm super proud, especially for, like, our first main work. Mm-hmm. I'm super proud of it.
Are we still on challenges or?
If you have anything to add to challenges, yes.
I can touch on a personal challenge, and I'm sure they'll relate. Not so much so like organizational challenge of us 3 doing things together, more kind of my personal experience working with not only them, but just other people when it comes to creative work. I tend to be a little like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's not as easy as for me to express myself when there's other people's opinions in front of my expression, you know? So I work better when I'm producing by myself and then I share the idea with Lester or Gerald or whatever it may be. So that was a big challenge for me, just being comfortable, being in the studio with 2 people where maybe I'm thinking of something that I think is cool, but then it's like, oh, well, like, now I have to share it with them and get their opinion and maybe they think it's stupid or whatever. So, like, that's more of a personal kind of challenge, but going through that and like them being so open to everyone just sharing their ideas in like a very open space where no one critiques and no idea is dumb, like helped, you know, from a creative standpoint. And then obviously, you know, everyone, I can say all 3 of us have a strong personality, so when we like something, we really like it, and you better like it, because if not, I'm going to get pissed off. So decisions were, you know, at the end of the day, the person whose track we were working on had the last say, but there also wasn't like an autonomy where we're only going to do what Lester says for his track or Jorge says for his track. So being open to also hearing other people's opinions about your idea, not being attached to them emotionally, because ultimately, I'm sure, and this is something that I also learned, they're putting their best foot forward as well. They're not just saying it to critique it, they're saying it because they think that it can improve in a certain way. So, yeah, I mean, I think the lesson here is if you're in an environment and you're working on something that is, you know, that requires creativity, if people aren't creating an environment where like you're open to sharing ideas and they won't critique and no idea is dumb, then maybe that's not the right environment for you. And I would push everyone to create that sort of environment for everyone because it just helps more. And ultimately, I think that's also why we were able to create the 3 songs in such a quick time period. Because we were just disciplined. We worked every single day, and we also said like, I'm not gonna stop an idea that I have in my head from coming out because I'm afraid that someone's gonna bat it, like shoot it down, you know?
100%. It takes a lot of vulnerability and a lot of strength to like bring an idea to the forefront, especially when it comes to like creating music, because that is such from the soul. So thank you for sharing that. What is, you know, one piece of advice as up and coming producers and you know, in the industry that you would give to a DJ that wants to become a producer? What is like one biggest takeaway for each of you that you would give them?
Yeah, you go first.
Honestly, just start doing it. That's literally it. Like it's so, especially like anybody who's messed around with like DAWs, like Ableton or Logic or whatever, like it's very overwhelming if you have no idea what it is. Like it is just kind of like, what the hell is going on? And so just start doing it. And sure, your first song is going to be crap and your second one's going to be probably worse. And like it's, but every time I think at least I've like worked with these guys, work with Jorge, or even just by myself, like watching a video, if I can take away one thing I learned, pretty much every single new project I start will have that thing incorporated. And so it just starts kind of like just piecing together into all this knowledge that you've slowly been building up. You don't really realize it till you're like 30 tracks in or 30 ideas in and you're like, oh wow, like I actually know how to do that because I saw a video last time or somebody taught me how to do that. Or also that, just like talking to people that maybe have a little bit more experience than you do, and like at least in a technical aspect, because at the end of the day, it is kind of creativity, and it's like your own to like make your own. So yeah, just start doing it. That's literally the one thing to do.
Yeah, definitely strongly agree with that. I think another big one is dropping the ego. Like, put yourself in a room where you're the dumbest, where you're the worst at something, and learn from the people around you. Like, being with them during this process, I learned so much. Being with our sound engineer, so much. I did a lot on my own, but being with them and saying like, hey, acknowledging I'm not going to be great at this at first, accepting that, I think that was my biggest obstacle. Because like with DJing, for example, you're not great when you start, and then you get good, and you're playing big shows, and you're like, I don't want to be shit at something again. And for me, that was what was holding me back personally. So being able to be like, I'm accepting it. I know this is going to be public, and I'm putting it up like on Spotify, Apple Music, what have you, but just accepting that, and then like getting through those first few songs, those first few tracks, it gives you life, and then you're like, all right, I got this, you know?
Yeah.
I guess I would say something that is not only going to help you get started, but is also going to like help you be consistent and continue to pursue that skill, which is producing music, is something that I did, at least that's worked. I created a playlist on Spotify of songs that I like currently and I've liked for many years. And I started to try to identify like similarities in not only like the instruments, but like the emotion that they make me feel. And I encourage everyone to like seek creating that emotion in yourself through the whatever production software that you're using. So constantly wanting to be able to create something like the music that I listen to and that emotion that I feel is like helped me, even though I can't right now because I'm still not a professional producer, has kept me like consistent in it and continuing to grow and wanting to evolve as a producer.
This is great. These are great thoughts. Thank you so much for sharing these. And I kind of want to switch gears to what is the most crucial piece of advice you each have received from maybe somebody else, a mentor, a podcast, that has changed you as an artist?
I would say the best piece of advice I've received came from my younger brother. He is like the most artistic person that I know. He like paints, wants to learn how to produce music, writes poems, just overall artistically just a person that expresses himself in every way, shape, or form. And he hasn't necessarily given me like a specific piece of advice, but he's just like brought that out of me. And I feel like, actions say a lot more than words. Just express yourself in the way that you feel confident in, whether it may be music, writing, or whatever. And that'll ultimately help you become a better artist.
Love that.
Yeah, similarly, and this is like obviously really hard because as a creative you're looking for validation, but my mentor is a DJ in Brooklyn. He actually used to drum for Chelsea Cutler, so he broke off, started doing house music, and he told me, you just gotta stay true to yourself. You have to listen to what your heart's telling you with music. Do not make it for other people, because then you get stuck in this hole where, imagine you get big and you're making music for other people. Now you're doing that for the rest of your life. It's like, is that what's, you could have all the money in the world, you're not going to be truly, truly happy. And that's something I was really happy about with the EP too, is because like the songs, like even when they come up on my shuffle, I'm like, oh, I'm jamming, right? Some of my friends, my best friends from New York, I go to shows with all the time, they don't like my music, and I'm not offended by it, but I'm like, I'm happy that I'm doing it for me, right? Mm-hmm. Like I know that it's making me smile, and like it's making some other people smile. Granted, some people that I love aren't, but that's not going to stop me from carving that way out myself. So that was like something that resonated with me, and I'm just like really happy about it. And also the life of a DJ producer, just to piggyback, is like, I don't think necessarily your DJing, your discography has to be super reflective, or your producing, your discography has to be super reflective of your DJing. Like my Spotify is my audio journal. That is where I put my heart, my emotion, my day-to-day. My DJing, it depends where I'm at. If I'm playing an afters club like 2 to 4 a.m., like I'm throwing down like melodic techno. I'm not producing that right now, but like, but our music fits in certain places, and I think understanding that you can separate those things that's okay, So that's kind of my bit.
I kind of want to, touch on that before you go. That's so true. I think artists, I as an artist, even as in podcasting, pigeonhole ourselves into one thing, or we do one type of music. But reality is like you can put that into other directions. So I think that's a really huge point. Thank you for sharing that.
I think, well, maybe not as inspirational as these two guys, but like I think, well, with the last question, it just made me think of, like, for example, Danny Camp, our friend and producer, local producer and DJ who helped us actually master and mix this EP. One of the like coolest things he taught me was like to never like shy away or never like think yourself too good. Like he's been producing music or like specifically working with like mixing and mastering for 10 plus years in a bunch of different genres and stuff like that. And he even himself said that like he was for a second a little bit too proud to just like use inspiration, like direct inspiration when working on a song. Like literally, I mean, like grab the MP3 of a song you really like at the moment, put it at the top of your DAW, and then try to copy it. Like obviously with your own instruments, with your own ideas and stuff like that, but just like, oh, the kick comes in here, put it in there. The vocals come in here, put it in there. Like, it seems like a very like, I'm better than that sort of test, but I can't tell you like how, if you draw from your inspirations, like it really can bring out your own, especially if you're unsure of like what you want to play, what genre you want to focus in, stuff like that. Lately, like Jorge and I have been playing a lot of Afro House this last year, but like lately I like, last weekend I recorded like a deep house set, which is like what I kind of started playing when I started getting into electronic music, and I forgot like how much I love like just like very like deep sort of like melancholic like house music. And so I just like jumped in, like started working on a project just focused on that, like completely stepping away from what we've been doing recently. So again, just drawing from the inspiration and like focusing on that, I think is what matters.
That is huge. That is so true. I think any industry can take from that. Sometimes when you start with something and break it down that's already been created, it helps you to create something new, because sometimes it's overwhelming. Like when you get, I opened Ableton for the first time and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I was like, oh, it's like Adobe. No, it's not. It's very different. And so I think to like take that song and be able to break it into the parts of the song, and it's a good learning tool, if anything, and then you can start to create something that's your own. You guys have been so inspiring to artists and non-artists. I think just like hearing your story of what you're working on is incredible, and I'd love to open it up to the audience for questions. Anybody have any questions for our gentleman today? Yes, Jess. All right, I'm going to repeat that question. So, if do you see club culture dying, and if so, where do you see it going? What kind of events do you see happening, either replacing that or as kind of a spin-off of club culture?
I personally think that the reason that people say that club culture is dying, and I wouldn't call it dying, it's just like evolving, is because of the impact that social media has had in the music industry. And now, you know, the experience of going to a concert, listening to music, has an audio component to it as well, and like other aspects that aren't just music centric that have to be taken into account, because of, you know, everyone's going to watch it in the world because it's going to be on someone's phone and it's going to be like a little screen 20-second video, right? So I'm seeing a lot of, you know, especially here in Austin, the morning coffee spins, stuff like that, or more like properly thought out, curated experiences when it comes to music because of that social media aspect. So I'm sure that eventually the biggest clubs in the world, I mean, you see now like the Afterlives of the world, where it's a massive screen with like a human just like floating in the air, or the kind music concerts, you know, it's in the middle of the jungle and there's a massive peace sign. Like, I don't think that it's dying, it's evolving. It has an audio component to it now, and you have to appease the fact that it's going to reach the rest of the world through a phone, you know, through social media, through an app. Visual. Through
Visual components, yeah.
Oh, was I saying audio? Yeah, I meant visual.
I meant visual.
I know what you mean. Well, okay, so Interesting question. I mean, I think when tables started getting introduced, that's actually when the club started changing a lot, because the dance floors went from, like, you go to Mayfair, all the tables are in the middle. They want you to be in the middle because they want you to, one, pay the money, and two, they want you to feel like you're in the center of the club. They're not favoring the artist and the music, they're favoring the commercial part, which is fine, to each their own. But if you flip that and you put the dance floor in the middle and you have limited amount of tables, I mean, those places are still there. There are festivals that aren't super social media centric. You go to Coachella, yeah, it's all influencers. Half the people are there for Instagram, half the people are there for the music. You go to somewhere like Arc in Chicago, all house and techno, not one person has their freaking phone out. It is unbelievable. I go every freaking year. It is the best festival if you like house and techno. And those places, those people, it's still thriving. It's still a thing. Seismic, I think, does a great job. I don't think it's super social media centric, but it's the branding, it's how you start. And then it's also understanding that there is a balance, because obviously you need to not use social media as a marketing tool is silly because you have to make money at the end of the day. You can't just like lose money on these festivals. So like using it to make those videos and those reels after the fact to draw people in the following year is important. But I guess like attracting the right person so it's not the focal point, that's the kicker. And like, I don't have the answer. I don't work for Insomniac or any of these major festivals. Like, I don't know. But in theory, I think that's like the best route to, help that cause.
Definitely.
Well, I think there's also like artists or maybe specific kinds of parties, maybe like the no art parties that Another does and stuff like that, where like I think they did like a couple in like Space Miami, and it was no phones policy. And that, like you mentioned how like social media can like definitely benefit to like boost your festival or your show or stuff like that, your brand. But I think I really like the aspect of like going towards no phones, because honestly I think it's really stupid to just like spend all day like just recording and like not going there for the music, which is the focus. Like the fact that people are so attention starved that you need to have like massive like spectacle and fireworks and visuals and like just to like keep their attention is kind of annoying. Like the DJ used to be like in like a little corner, like a dark corner, and it wasn't about nobody was facing the DJ.
Yeah.
It's like you're just there for the music, you're there to vibe, and you're there to enjoy yourself. And so I wish we could kind of like go back a little bit. I think the no phones policy in some clubs and stuff like that is kind of a step in the right direction there. And I think that also kind of like creates its own like appeal too, because it's like, I missed out because nobody has video of it. Everybody like had their phones confiscated. So it's kind of like, ooh, I want to be a part of that, So I hope that's kind of some of the direction that we're headed in, but I see why also like social media, I mean, even behind the booth, like we have such a huge emphasis on, it's not just getting the gig, it's not just hosting the event, it's like getting a good photographer to take video and pictures and everything, and making sure you're actually like active on social media, and or else like you're not going to win the popularity contest. You might be a better DJ, but you're not going to get gigs. Like unfortunately, that's just the truth. Like bar managers and like all those people, promoters, like they don't really necessarily care about like how good of like skilled you are as a DJ. It's more like how many people you're going to bring in and stuff like that. So it's a pretty decent mix between all that.
100%. Well, thank you so much, you guys. For our final question, where do you want to take your music into 2025?
I just want to keep working at it like one project at a time. I just want to keep learning something. If by the end of the year I've learned 60, 50, maybe even just 30 good things that will make me a better producer and make me like be able to convey like what inspired me, like I mentioned, like whole like the melancholic, like music that makes you feel something, I want to be able to share that. And if I can learn the traits and the tricks and the technicalities to like getting there, I'll be happy for it.
Awesome.
For myself, set some goals. Like I want to produce a track a month, whether it's going onto Spotify, SoundCloud, or if I'm holding on to it just to play at shows. I would like to get at least one single signed at a record label this year just to help with marketing and stuff. And then like for my sound, I definitely I love the project we worked on. I love the music that we made, but like my personality too. Like I'm a high energy individual, and I love playing like the peak hour where the music's just jam, and I need like a little bit of heavier music, but I want to take a lot of those elements from the stuff that we made, the instruments and the sound. So it's like I'm working on a track right now where I'm essentially trying to mix like the percussives of like Latin Afro house, but the synth work of like melodic techno. So it's gonna be faster and heavier, but still has that like that groove from the Afro percussives. And that's like, okay, this is like where I want my sound to go. So I think like sculpting that this year is like, I guess like the overarching theme for myself.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same as Gerald and Lester. I want to continue to just create songs or produce songs, maybe not once a month, but pretty regularly, pretty consistently. Get at least one signed by a record label would be insane.
Yeah.
Maybe one get played by a good DJ that I like, and I somehow get a video.
Yeah.
That would be insane. And then outside of that, I'm kind of have this vision of releasing music and also creating a brand behind the music that I'm releasing. And also, for example, this sweater was made by my brother, so I'd like to leverage the popularity or the traction that my music gets to then put out like random pieces like this and create like a whole brand behind it.
Absolutely love it. You guys, thank you so much for sharing. Before we wrap up, drop your Instagram handles. How can people find your music?
So @_HAUTE take_. That's our hot take. And then @_Pablo Rosa_. That's my personal DJ one.
Yeah, I'm at ganimal.ofc, Ganimal official.
Yeah, so the hot take, and then my personal one is Fearless, FIERLES, because my name's Lester, last name Fierro. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this inspiring conversation, and give them a round of applause. All right. Well, we are going to be wrapping up. Again, give us a follow at Amplify EDM on Instagram as well as on YouTube, youtube.com, and then at Ampedcast, AMPEDCAST, to see this recording and other recordings with artists in our community. And now let's get ready for some music. Yes. Thanks, guys.